What do you picture when you hear the name Mjölnir? For most today, it's the Marvel version, a sleek hammer wielded by a superhero. But long before comic books and cinema, Mjölnir was something far more mysterious and far more terrifying. In Norse mythology, Mjölnir was not just a weapon. It was a symbol of divine power, a ritual tool, a protector of gods and humans alike. It was thunder itself, the embodiment of raw, destructive force and sacred order. So today, let's dive into the real story of Mjölnir, not the Hollywood myth, but the ancient one passed down by skalds and carved into stone. By the end, you'll see Thor's hammer in a whole new light. The birth of the hammer. Every great weapon has an origin story, and Mjölnir's begins with trickery. According to the Prose Edda, it all started with Loki, the cunning trickster of the Norse gods. One day, Loki decided to cause mischief, as usual. He cut off the golden hair of Sif, Thor's wife, a woman whose hair was said to shine like wheat fields under the sun. Furious, Thor threatened Loki with violence unless he found a way to fix what he had done. Loki, fearing for his life, rushed to the realm of the dwarves, the greatest craftsmen in all the 9 worlds. There, he commissioned new hair for Sif, spun of real gold. But Loki's clever tongue didn't stop there. He challenged 2 dwarf brothers, Brokkr and Sindri, to craft even greater treasures. Sindri worked the forge, while Brokkr kept the bellows blowing. The gods watched as one by one treasures emerged. Gullinbursti, a golden boar faster than any horse; Draupnir, Odin's golden ring that produced more rings every 9th night; and at last, Mjölnir. But here's the twist. While the hammer was being forged, Loki interfered, turning into a fly and biting Brokkr's eyelids to distract him. For just a moment, the bellows faltered. The result? Mjölnir emerged, but with a flaw. Its handle was shorter than intended, making it more like a war hammer than a long-handled weapon. And yet, despite the flaw, it became the most fearsome weapon in the hands of the gods. The hammer's powers. In the myths, Mjölnir was said to strike with the force of thunder and lightning. When Thor hurled it, it never missed its mark, and it always returned to his hand. The hammer could crush mountains, slay giants, and destroy any who threatened the gods or the order of the cosmos. But Mjölnir was more than a tool of war. It was also a sacred object, used in rituals of blessing and consecration. With Mjölnir, Thor hallowed marriages, marked births, and even sanctified funerals. Archaeologists have found countless hammer-shaped amulets across Scandinavia, suggesting that ordinary people saw it as a symbol of protection. To wear Mjölnir around your neck was to call on Thor's strength and safeguarding presence. In other words, Mjölnir was both weapon and blessing, death and life, destruction and protection, a paradox forged in iron. Thor, the defender. Why was Thor chosen as Mjölnir's wielder? Because Thor was the protector of gods and men. In the mythology, he was not just a god of thunder, but also the champion who defended Asgard and Midgard from the giants. Time and again, stories tell of Thor facing these chaotic beings, wielding Mjölnir as the final answer to their threats. One of the most famous tales is when Thor journeyed to the land of the giants, where he tried to lift a cat that was actually the serpent Jormungandr in disguise. Though he could not lift it entirely, he raised one of its paws off the ground. An incredible feat, considering this serpent encircled the entire world. In another tale, Thor fought the giant Hrungnir. Armed with a whetstone, Hrungnir challenged Thor. But Mjölnir shattered his skull like clay, cementing the hammer's role as the ultimate giant killer. For the Norse people, these stories were more than entertainment. They reflected a worldview where chaos and destruction were always threatening to overwhelm order. And only strength, courage, and divine protection could hold them back. The theft of Mjölnir. One of the most famous myths about the hammer is not about Thor wielding it, but about losing it. In the poem Thrymskvida from the Poetic Edda, the giant Thrym steals Mjölnir and hides it deep in the land of the Mjölnir. Without his hammer, Thor is powerless. Thrym declares that he will only return the hammer if the gods give him Freya, the goddess of beauty, as his bride. Outraged, Freya refuses, but the gods come up with a plan. They disguise Thor himself as Freya, complete with bridal veil and dress, and send him to Thrym's hall. At the wedding feast, Thrym marvels at Freya's appetite as Thor devours whole oxen and drinks barrels of mead. Suspicious, Thrym peers under the veil, but Loki cleverly explains it away. Finally, Thrym brings out Mjölnir to bless the bride. The moment the hammer is placed in Thor's lap, he rips off the veil, seizes Mjölnir, and slaughters Thrym and every giant in the hall. The story is humorous, but it reveals something vital. Mjölnir is inseparable from Thor. Without it, he is vulnerable. With it, he is unstoppable. Mjölnir and the end of the world. In Norse mythology, every story leads to Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, and Mjölnir plays a central role in that final battle. When the end times come, Thor will face his greatest enemy, Jörmungandr, the world's serpent. Their hatred runs deep, stretching back to the beginning of time. At Ragnarok, they will meet on the battlefield. Thor will strike the serpent with Mjölnir, killing it at last. But the victory will cost him his life. Jörmungandr's venom will fill Thor's veins, and he will stagger only 9 steps before falling. Thus, Mjölnir remains faithful to its role until the very end. The hammer that defends gods and men, even at the cost of its master's life. Symbol of faith. What makes Mjölnir so fascinating is that it wasn't just a myth, it was part of daily life in the Viking Age. Across Scandinavia, people wore hammer pendants around their necks, often alongside or in contrast to the Christian cross. To wear Mjölnir was to declare allegiance to the old gods, to Thor the defender, and to the worldview of strength against chaos. Even today, Mjölnir remains one of the most widely recognized symbols of Norse culture. Modern heathens wear it as a sign of faith, while historians and storytellers continue to explore its layers of meaning. Beyond marvel. And here's the truth. The real Mjölnir of mythology is far older, darker, and more powerful than the Marvel version. In the myths, it was never about who was worthy to lift it. It was about the eternal struggle between order and chaos, life and death, gods and giants. Mjölnir was not a superhero's toy. It was the thunderbolt of the Norse world, the heartbeat of their faith, and the promise of protection in a world full of danger. So next time you hear the name, remember, behind the Hollywood hammer lies a story forged in fire, blood, and the voices of ancient skalds. And that story is far too powerful to be forgotten.